Good evening, everyone. My name is George Chapchin. I'm the Director of Community Services and Parks. I want to welcome you to the meeting. We have an agenda for you. I'm going to start off by introducing some key people here. Then we'll go look at a couple of slides that we have and some video of the storm and some of the mud flow. And then I will hand this over to Steve Zern, our Public Works Director, who will take it from there. From Carol Liu's office, and Malia wants to say a few words. Malia Melis.
I'm an intern with Senator Carol Liu's office, and she has some information that she asked me to pass along to you. She just first wanted to say thank you for all the cooperation and everybody here that's working really hard to help to deal with the issues of the mudslides. She also, I don't know if you've seen this form, but it's what her office has put out. It's complete information about the mudslides, and it's just something that can be really helpful. It's at all local businesses. And it represents every part of the community and every part of her district, and it has valuable information. And then also you can find it online at her website. The website is www.senate.ca.gov/Liu. Do you want me to say it again? One more time. Okay, it's www.senate.ca.gov/Liu. Liu. And also this form is online, and they're also in the back of the room, and I have some if anybody would like some. And then just a couple other announcements she had asked me to pass forward to you is that she has a job fair coming up that you can find online on her website. She has a grants fair coming up and also a 5K run she has asked her constituents to participate in with her. That is coming up on February 28th in Glendale. So that's about it, but thank you.
I know that many of you are here. You're interested in what's going to happen in your home. But before we do that, let me show you some slides that we have of Deukmejian Park, because there are a number of people interested in what's going on in the park. We've had to turn some people away because it is dangerous up there. So we want to show you the slides so you can get a sense of what's going on and what we're dealing with. And this is the debris basin before the storms. And this is the debris basin after the storms. And as you can see, I'm sorry. There you go. As you can see, it's fairly full. And the debris here, these are logs that came down during the storm. This is one of the roads that leads from the barn up to the trails. And this is what it looks like now. This is another one of the trails, and just take a look at right here as a reference point when we show you the next slide. And this is what it looks like now in terms of the caverns built in. So we are seeing a lot of mud flow. This is one of the catch dams. This was not visible before the storm, so all that got washed away during the storm. Here's further into the canyon there. And as you can see, it all has eroded along the sides. This is one of our K-rails that did a great job of protecting the barn. Absolutely did a great job. We want to thank Public Works for putting that. There's two K-rails there, put it there. A lot of the debris flow went right along that and went down into the debris basin. So it really did help save the barn. Yes. Yes. And some of you who know the park may have seen this boulder before. It is near the barn, and as you can see, it's eroded underneath. So this is one of the areas that we're a little concerned about. With further erosion, that boulder may come down. Hopefully, if it does, it'll go right towards that K-rail and right down into the debris basin. Just some photos. Here's a photo of the side of the mountain. As you can see, these deep crevices in the mountains. All that's been eroded. This is the wall next to the ranger station. Should have been a retaining wall, but I think there wasn't much reinforcement in, so we lost that wall. Here's a before shot of one of the catch dams, and here's an after. Okay, this is a video that our we call it, there's a camera up there at Deukmejian recording the rains and the mud flow. We can move this camera around a little bit. Sure. No? Oh, we'll do it right after that? You want to? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you can see this area up here. We marked this area. This is about 6 feet high. Above that is about 8 to 10 feet high. This is the catch basin or catch dam, and the width is about 40 to 50 feet wide, I think. When we tried, I mean, what you would have seen is a wall of mud, probably about 12 to 15 feet high, just coming right through along with logs, as if a dam up further north burst and it just all came down. For about 15 minutes of, and lucky for us, the debris basin held it all in. But we'll put this on our website. You know, first thing tomorrow we can put it on the website. It doesn't look like it's going to load. Okay. So just wanted to show you the condition of the park. I know many of you are interested in it, and encourage you not to go there. If you know, please don't go there. It is closed. We're not sure, you know, how safe it is. We're going to have the USGS come by and take a look and do an assessment for us. If it is safe, you know, we'll open it at a time when we feel it's safe. But right now, we're not sure how many of the boulders are going to come down, how big they are. A lot of, you know, we've looked at the side of some of those mountains, and the soil's eroded, and you can see granite. So I'm not sure what's holding some of those big pieces of granite in. So with that, I'll just turn this over to Steve Zurton, Director of Public Works.
Good evening. Thank you again for being here. I don't have any slick photos. This is really an opportunity for us to get back in touch base with you. We haven't met since before the rain started, and this was an opportunity for us to get together to touch base with you, to answer questions, for me to thank you all for what outstanding cooperation each and every one of you have given us throughout this, whether it was hardening your own personal property against the oncoming rains, cooperating with my staff and the staff of the city, you know, getting up and leaving your homes when you were asked to do that in a particularly tough situation. That's an unusual thing usually. But really, truly, you folks have been absolutely fantastic in all of your efforts here. We've been very lucky to date. The danger is not over. As we've said to you from the beginning, this is something that we're going to have to live with for throughout the rest of this year as we enter probably more the heart of the rainy season in March and April, but certainly for a couple of years possibly to come. So we're not nearly through this. We've been very fortunate. You saw the Dunsmuir debris channel. Part of the reason we've been so fortunate is because of the debris basins and the flood control devices that we have here in Glendale. On the western side, we've got the 2 Cooks basins in that channel, Dunsmuir that runs on the eastern side of the park, the Ward Basin that collects at the Ashrama facility out on the Pennsylvania. These have all been taxed, let me tell you. We pushed these, and Mother Nature pushed these facilities to the limit. But we were very fortunate to have these, much more fortunate than some of our neighbors to the east who don't have these type of facilities. And in a minute we'll have Mark Pastrella from LA County come up and talk to you about those flood control devices. I will tell you that this hazard will not go away. We need to be extremely vigilant in our efforts, never letting our guard down. Again, you know, our motto has been prepare, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, and that continues to be the motto we have. There's only so much we can do before these facilities are at capacity, and the hardening of some of the neighborhoods and some of the devices we put in just no longer will suffice, and we all have to leave. So I just implore you that when that call comes, that you heed that. We take it very seriously. That's a trigger, as we say, we don't like to pull just for the sake of doing it. When we want to make that decision, when that decision is made, it's serious, and we hope you all will continue to be as cooperative as you have been to respond to that. Again, I'm just reiterating some of the things on this basin has just done very well. You'll see over here to the right, you'll see a pipe that's standing up there. That's the standpipe that drains out of the facility. Here you can see it before it was full. This is some 40 feet deep, actually, to where it drains in. You can also see it's a bit askew there. It took a knock from a rock that there was a whole pile of rocks right in that particular area. The timber floated out into the spillway. The heavy rock debris is there. We have washed out the ash. We've washed out the topsoil. We've washed out most of the timber, although I suspect we'll see some more. Now we're down to a lot of rock, and that's where things become very, very dangerous. Certainly the county folks can talk to you about what occurred to the east. Heavy rock debris rolling through there, shearing off steel debris rakes and debris fences that they had in, clogging their inlets and causing some of the problems there. So that's really kind of what we're down to, which is a scary proposition. So again, we continue to look at this from the ground, from the air. We have patrols out there on a constant basis. The county is out there on a constant basis, doing everything they can to prepare for the next wave. But again, as you've read in the paper, and as George has just showed you, the park is taking a beating. And there's more to possibly come out of there. And I wish you could have seen that video and seen in just a split second, literally a second, what occurred. And if this basin hadn't had the capacity, we'd have been in real trouble. And as was mentioned, we watched this basin ebb for about a week with almost nothing coming out. Actually, we were pretty worried. And then all of a sudden, back deep in the canyon where some of the area hadn't been burnt, it had been all sort of damming up there, and enough rain occurred and it let loose. But that can happen again. From our aerial reconnaissance, we've seen debris building up, timber. When we say timber, it's very hard to imagine that with this picture, but up at that spillway, we're talking 30, 40-foot trees. This is not just, some random branches that collected, but huge pieces of timber that rolled out of there. Even the trees and the vegetation that wasn't burnt has now been undermined so badly, it's going to begin to be pulled out of there too. We're seeing full root balls exposed. So that vegetation that sits in the channel is also going to start to come out as well. But again, the channels did their job. They functioned properly. We're very lucky to have these facilities and facilities of this size in the city. But they too have a limit. And again, when we made that evacuation call several weeks ago, it was based a great deal on county flood control's fears that the basins would be breached with what the weather predictions were. And as you've all seen, we talked about this, it's far from a science, far from an exact science. We've seen predictions come that we were very much hardening our reserves and getting ready to withstand, and it just never panned out. We had these cells that would pass through. We'd get on the news, and all of a sudden you'd see Long Beach was inundated, and we had been spared. And again, this early Saturday morning was supposed to be a light pre-Super Bowl day, and it turned out to be the worst that we had here, and certainly our friends and neighbors to the east as well. So again, thank you. You've been great. Our staff, my staff, the staff of the city, fire, police, parks, water and power, greatly appreciate it. We run into you as you're walking your dogs or coming to ask questions, and everybody's been super in their cooperation and their efforts, and we just ask you to continue that. And most importantly, again, to reiterate the point, we've got to be vigilant. We really have to be vigilant because this can happen quickly. We are not immune from something happening like it did in Sierra Madre or La Crescenta unincorporated or La Cañada Flint Ridge. So we have to be ready and prepared at all times. One of the things I was going to mention, this last February 6th, we kind of sent the message out a little stronger than we had about making sure you had your cars off the street. That's a big, big issue. I wish we had some footage to show you on Ocean View in La Cañada where, the cars that got left out in the street, they picked them up down on Foothill by the time they got done. You saw pictures of K-rails, 3- and 4-ton K-rails that had been thrown around. Some of the information we have is that those K-rails were actually hit by cars and drug. So it was actually these cars that caused a great deal of problem. The other thing is, I think trash collection up here is generally Monday. So please, as soon as you can, get your trash cans back up into your yard, because we saw those cause a lot of problems. As they get swept down the street, open end ends up causing a damming situation, and it becomes very, very troublesome in that regard. The cars can cause a problem. More importantly, you lose your car, because the devastation of these cars is pretty complete. I know there's been some questions about, well, if we put our car in our garage, then do we get trapped in our garage or our driveway? Hey, we can dig you out of your driveway. Your car will be safe. And we'll come and get you and be able to eventually dig you out of there and get your car out of there so you can drive away. If your car's out in the street and it gets, pushed down to Santa Carlotta, you're only making a call to the insurance company. That's about all. So again, those are some things that we ask your cooperation on. We haven't felt the need to post no parking signs or to threaten towing measures. In fact, our police department went, for those folks who didn't get the message or had their cars out, we went up door to door. We had probably close to 100% participation. Again, just a reflection of what a great community this is and how cooperative you've been with us. We haven't had any kind of a trouble getting that cooperation. Again, sandbags will continue to be available at Dunsmore Park. If you call the Public Works Department, if you're in other areas where that may be not as convenient a locale. Folks up on Quail Canyon, we've delivered it up to their street and put it at the end of the street. If there's some other streets where it might be more convenient if we just drop them right on your street so they can help you out, let us know. I say this because a lot of you may have the bags in place and say, I'm good. A lot of these bags are burlap. It will begin to deteriorate. So you need to check those bags and make sure. The sun will get to them, the water gets to them, they rot, and they'll just wash away with the rain. So be very diligent in checking your bags. We've gone to now a poly bag versus the burlap bag, so we have those available. So we'll start filling those poly bags, and they tend to last a little bit longer, especially as we get into the warmer months. I look to Dave, but Jeff is probably the expert here. I suspect it will have another sandbag filling event at some point in time where community volunteers and students and scouts, where we'll probably do that at Dunsmore Park and give everybody an opportunity to come out and fill more bags and take those. But again, keep an eye on the bags, refresh those bags. They will deteriorate pretty rapidly as they get wet and then the sun comes on. I think I've covered just about everything. Any quick question? Yes.
Good job, first of all.
Thank you.
The catch basins, have they been inspected for any kind of damage? You talked about
You're talking about these debris basins versus the street catch basins, which is a good, I'm glad you brought that up because, well, I think right after me, the county staff is going to come up here and give you an overview of their facilities, and they can better answer that. I can tell you from our interaction with them, because we have had great communication with the county throughout this process, that not only is it a public works level, that's at a fire and sheriff and police level as well. So our communication has been very, very tight. And I can tell you just by seeing the patrols and seeing the staff of LA County Public Works, they are up here all the time. They have been in basins when it's been pouring. I saw a guy up in a basin in the middle of the rain up on Quail Canyon. That Friday or February the 6th, Saturday morning when we had that, they had equipment poised at the Ward Basin ready to go in there. It just overwhelmed them. They couldn't get in there right away. But as soon as the weather clears, these folks have been in there working hard, working around the clock. This is as hard a working a group of people as I've ever been associated with. So I think, again, they can answer it more succinctly than I can. But my viewpoint is they are constantly monitoring, inspecting, and watching these basins. And we are too. We're helping them. Not that we're looking over their shoulder, but we constantly, Fire Chief Scoggins, Captain Rufino's here, he has a regular patrol that watches the basins just for water level issues. I have a regular patrol of Public Works guys that do it. So we've got eyes on those basins on a constant round the clock, especially during the rain. And we have the mud camps, of course, the famous mud camps. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
The concern that we live below the mountains that are being built up there where they're dumping the debris. How safe are they?
Well, again, I'm going to defer to the experts in a minute here to let them answer specifics. But we too share that concern with you. I met yesterday with staff from LA County Public Works. This is a site that's been in place for quite some time. It's nearing its fill capacity. They are limited in the amount of space they have to deposit this material, and this fire and the results of this fire has taxed every available amount of space that they have, and I know they're diligently trying to work with the state on getting another site fast-tracked through a permit process. But again, it's a lot like a landfill. There's an engineering plan and a fill plan, and there's engineering supervision that goes with it. We've expressed our concern. We've expressed concern on your part as well that while we fully understand and fully support the cleaning of the basins, no question about it, we want to make sure that we're not just transferring a problem from one area to another area. And when you have homes on Mark Ridge that are looking right down the barrel of that particular facility, we want to make sure that they're protected. So our concern, and we continue to express that concern, the county's been very receptive to that. In fact, they're working with our technical staff so that there's a sense of understanding and a buy-in on our part that technically this is safe. There's some drainage problems. We do see some slough off that comes out of that site, but also, you know, you have some pretty steep denuded hills in the back of their facility where that tends to come out as well. So that whole western side of the park, if you will, has been one of our biggest concerns. But we'll continue to watch that. The county is very aware of it. I think I can speak for them. They know more a secondary problem than anybody else does. I have heard it's very near capacity. Yes. So then they'll have. As far as. Well, when they reach their fill capacity at that particular site, and again, I don't want to speak for them. I'll let them talk about that a little bit more. There is, and we've pointed that out as well. So that some of that has come down the Dunsmore Access Road. They have some catch facilities that they've built there. I don't know what their plans are as far as building more of those, but again, I'll let them speak to that as they're the experts. Yes, ma'am.
With the basin being as full as it was, and I know we've had trucks running every day removing the debris, what's the capacity for that catch basin now, and is it prepared if we were to have another cell come through? How much could it handle right now?
I'll let them answer that question. Very good question. They have a short time. They began emptying basins as soon as the rain subsided. That includes basins all across the burn area. They have some basins that they prioritize as bigger threats, and they started with those. But you know, their objective is to clean as much as they possibly can before the next event. Cooks 1 and 2, which is over on the western side of Boston, there was equipment in that basin when it was raining, so I know they had already started there. The upper Cooks that fills more rapidly, they have been cleaning that. The Ward Basin I saw a picture of this morning, looked like it was almost completely cleaned out. That's a much smaller 12 or 13,000 cubic foot basin, and they've already made progress. I saw pictures today of Dunsmuir. They've already made progress in getting a lot of that timber out of there, some of the heavy rock out of there. They've exposed that standpipe quite a bit. They were out there today trying to vector, which is essentially just giant vacuum some of the debris out of the pipe. So it's not for lack of trying. These guys have been, it was, I think Monday was when they ceased their 24/7. They had been going 24/7 up until Monday. Now they're going yesterday. Now they're going into a daily 8 or 9 hour or 10 hour day in trying to keep that, the cleaning process going until the next event, which could be this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if you go up, we live off of Frederick, Brookville.
Uh-huh.
And when it really rained that Saturday, we had so much water, not a whole lot of debris, but it went out into the middle of the street on Frederick. Now, something really happens. The people on the corners, I'm not one of them, but the people on the corners have no K-rails, nothing. On Dunsmore, you have drains on every block.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. The only drain we have is at the bottom where Santa Carlotta is. So what I want to know, if it comes down to the canyon, hits Mark Ridge, it's going to go towards New York because it slants that way.
It actually breaks both ways. Some of it will break to New York. Actually, Frederick will take a tremendous amount of water, and if debris comes out from the entrance of the park, that's where it will go west and flow down Frederick.
That debris went only east at the bottom of Frederick. That what was it, Saturday night? All that debris that got past those drains went to the east on Santa Carlotta, and it was on both sides of the street.
But down Frederick.
Down Frederick,
Right.
and then
Right.
on Santa Carlotta, not west on Santa Carlotta.
No. I was just talking about Frederick. Frederick's a natural drainage point, so you're going to get water, and it drains actually very well. I mean, you will have points in time when the rain is so substantial that it does begin to move towards the center of the street. But what we didn't see happening is it going over the curbs into the homes, and that's what we want to make sure. You're going to see a lot of water on Frederick. You're going to see probably the most debris between Dunsmore and Frederick is where you'll see the most debris. And then, of course, Markridge. Markridge coming out of the park. We cleaned mostly on Markridge on the 6th. That's mostly where our cleaning was done. Dunsmuir had a pretty sizable amount that had come actually out of the flood control access road. And then Frederick just it's just the natural course of where the water goes from outside of the park.
People on the corners, could K-rails or whatever be put on?
I'll take a look. I thought we had K-rails on the corner. Okay, we'll take a look.
And that is, you know, like I said, I don't live on the corner. So am I going to get damaged? No. But a lot of my neighbors are. And some of them are older. And we all try to watch out for each other.
Right.
You can't be everywhere.
No, you all do a very good job of watching out for each other. But yeah, and we know there's quite a few folks that don't have the ability to do some of the heavy lifting and so forth on Markridge. So my staff has been doing a lot of that. But I'll check. I thought we had hardened the corner of Frederick, at least the way that the engineers felt the flow was. But we'll double check that. It's not a problem. But you are going to see a lot of flow on Frederick. I don't want to fool you. And Dunsmore too, probably less on New York. But those two streets will tend to be where the majority of the flow is. So it's a big, wide street with a great drop. So that's a real advantage. Most of the homes sit higher above than below the street, which is also a great advantage. So, but we're watching it, as I said, watching everything and watching it closely.
What happens to Santa Carlotta once that water gets down to the bottom of Frederick? There's no K-rails, no sandbags, no...
At Santa Carlotta, it starts to spread. Yes. So, and we're keeping an eye on that because we didn't know if the break point would be Santa Carlotta or if severe enough the break point is Foothill. I don't mean to be cavalier about it, but it could go as far as that. We hope it doesn't. But once it begins to get down to Santa Carlotta, it starts to spread. And what that I mean is we got to make sure that we keep the debris out of the way, but the water should flow into the natural water drainage paths there. It'll go east, it'll go west, but it'll start to spread, and then it starts to dissipate, at least velocity-wise. So Santa Carlotta is where we have essentially drawn the battle line, if you will, at this point. Keeping in mind, depending on how much debris could potentially come out of the park, we may all be pulling all the way back to Foothill, which is also how we've developed our evacuation plan. Yes, ma'am.
I'm concerned about the wash between New York and Frederick. Has anybody looked into what happens when those logs that are currently sitting on the spillway go down and cork up the wash?
Probably our biggest fear. We were on our hands and knees praying Saturday about that because it didn't look like we were going to be able to get any of that heavy timber out of the way. There was a couple of pieces that one piece had actually gotten over the spillway, and as the push from the force of the water began to push others over, we were ready to make the evacuation call if that timber started to get into that channel. That's the Dunsmuir channel, which as it's not a very wide channel to begin with, but narrows tremendously as you go under Markridge. And we were very afraid that one of those pieces would jam up. It was inevitable. We didn't think there was anything else other than it would jam up, and that's when we would start to get people out of there. The fire chief, the city manager, the police department, we were ready to make the evacuation call. As you might remember, we were looking at somewhere around a 1 to 2 o'clock rain event that was supposed to be equally as bad as the early morning event. We never got that. We got a lot of the clouds and a little bit of the rain, but we didn't get the big brunt of that. We were ready to leave for that afternoon if it came as hard as it had that morning, and that was one of the biggest concerns we had. The problem is there's nothing we could do, there's nothing the county could do. I think the county ended up getting specialized equipment to get the timber out of there. But what happens is the situation is so dangerous, there's no way I'm going to send anybody down there to try to do that. I would rather just get people to safe ground. But it'll go over. It'll go over, and there's a lot of homes that are built right up against that channel as you go south of Markridge. So all the homes that are along that wash, we have identified as potential, what we call the red zone homes, that we would leave.
The Markridge pumping station, we're directly below that. It's totally flat, and whatever's going over the wash will wash across that into our house. Is that something anybody's looked at?
It's a concern. it definitely is potential. This is a very deep channel. It has a pretty fair drop. But if we got the kind of debris that ended up piling up in that basin over that spillway and into that channel, we're going to have some problems. And that's when we're going to have to leave. We're going to ask you to leave because the danger to your home increases tremendously. So, yeah, we've looked at it. It's a concern. It's why we have that whole area along that channel highlighted as one of our primary evacuation areas if and when this basin or the Dunsmuir Basin fills up and potential for the channel to be impacted. As further down, the Verdugo Wash is very narrow, where the Verdugo Channel is, the Verdugo Debris Basin. The county's cleaning that as well. So we continue to patrol those during rain events and watch them. I mean, it's actually boots on the ground, eyes on the channel that are looking to see if there's any increase in the amount of water, if we see a jam or a clog. And that all goes back, and we begin the process, if we have to, of getting people out of their houses.
Is the timber on the spillway going to be removed?
It's almost all removed now. The large timber has almost all been removed. I saw this morning a lot of it had been done. The county was struggling a little bit because you required a pretty specialized piece of equipment to get down there and get some of that. But they had pulled a lot of it away already. They'd pulled a lot of the heavy rock away already. And I suspect, and again, Mark can probably verify that, they've told us that they'll have all of that heavy timber from the spillway cleared by the end of the week. It's impossible to clean that entire basin by the end of the week, but some of those very critical issues, the rock, getting the standpipe clear, getting the drainage at the front of the spillway clear, and getting that timber out of there are priorities for them, and I'm sure that they will be all over that. Yes, ma'am.
One of the things that we've encountered during the rain events, it would be interesting to know how full the debris basin of the Dunsmuir one is. And is there a webcam that actually focuses in on the debris basin itself, not just channels upstream?
That particular camera that you saw that we couldn't get kick-started there actually will turn and show the whole basin. No, it's not publicly available for a lot of reasons. One is which is, what you might see in the basin as being full may not necessarily mean it's full. There's, the issue between debris and water and how fast it drains out. So at this point in time, we don't have anything available that shows that for the general public.
Easy to do would be on the barn to mount a webcam or something, just because we live right below the basin up on the north side of Market, which is always the concern, is how full is it? People ask each other, how full do you think it is?
And it's pretty difficult at times when it's raining because, again, you have the water issue. And the water, if you get the water going over the spillway, it drains. If you get it to drain through the standpipe, all of those things in. And you'd be amazed how rapidly the water will begin to drain out once the rain has stopped. It's really the amount of debris that's in there. So I guess to answer your question, you're going to have to rely on us because we're watching it constantly. The county is watching it constantly. And if we think there's any threat, we'll be knocking on your door and calling you on the phone and every other thing that we can do to tell you it's time for us all to go because we can't guarantee that this basin's going to be able to perform. I'm going to answer one more question, and I'll be back to answer more. I'm going to let the county get up here and talk to you a little bit about their facilities. But yes, sir, one more question, and I'll be back.
Are the homes below Mark Ridge in danger too, like homes on Neville, Henrietta, Brook Hill? Can they, if it overflows on Mark Ridge, washes those homes away, how about the homes below it?
It all depends on the amount of debris that could potentially come over there. One of the concerns we have is it certainly can go beyond the first row of homes. The other concern we have is on many of those streets you have cul-de-sacs that are off the street. So if your home may not necessarily be damaged, but the street system can be so inundated that nobody can get in and you can't get out. So that's our concern. There was a lot of places on those cul-de-sacs where we didn't necessarily think the homes were in danger, but we thought for sure you could be trapped. Trapped two ways. Again, no public safety people to get up there in the event that you needed an emergency response, and no way for you to get out. So that's why we included all of those along the way, because we were not sure that we wouldn't be able to traverse those streets. But again, if we got enough debris, I'm sure it would go, 2 and possibly 3 homes deep as it gets into the backyards and that kind of thing. So let me turn this over, Mark. I'll be back. I will be ready to I'll answer questions all night for you if you need be. But let me introduce Mark Pastrella from LA County Public Works.
Thanks, Steve.
You bet.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Mark Pastrella. I'm the Deputy Director of Los Angeles County Department of Public Works. And my jurisdiction in our department is our flood control district and our waterworks districts. And I'm here tonight to answer questions mostly for you about the flood control system that protects the city of Glendale and the other communities here in the Foothill region. A little bit of background for you about me. I've been working for the department for 23 years. I am what we call a floodie for the department, been involved in flood control all that time. Did most of my time in the Malibu area, so I'm very used to the flood fire cycle. Have been in charge of the flood control district now in this title for about 9 months. But prior to that, I was in our planning group, our maintenance group, and as well as our operations group. So very familiar with the system and very familiar with the neighborhoods that you were all raising here, and very familiar with Dunsmuir debris basin and its operation. So I heard Steve was answering some questions, some very detailed questions that we want to have answered. I only have 4 slides tonight, and they're all about Dunsmuir. But before I go to those, I want to give you a little bit of background or a little bit about what's serving the city. We have 9 debris basins that serve the city of Glendale specific, but about 28 basins that are serving La Cusana, La Cañada Flint Ridge, and Glendale. The ones that protect the city of Glendale directly are Brand, Chamberlain, Childs, Cooks M1, Dunsmuir, Golf Club Drive, Hillcrest, Quell East, Quell West, Ward, Verdugo, and Skyridge. A number of basins. All of these basins were built between the 1930s and 1950s, and actually some of them were built as late as the 1990s, actually, to correct myself. And if you've been living here long enough, you know the history of why we built these debris basins in the 1934 event that basically struck. Finally, the politicians realized that the engineers were correct, and we did need to do something. The chief engineer of the flood control district prepared a plan to build these 28 debris basins, and actually 150 debris basins ultimately along the foothills to protect residents in the foothill communities. At that time, we did not have a big community living here like we do now. Most of the housing below Dunsmuir was built later after the debris basin was built. It was county and incorporated land at that time, and it was annexed into the city later on. So what came first mostly in terms of inhabitants is the debris basins themselves, although the floods that occurred in the 1934 event were devastating, and you've probably heard a lot about them. You hear the USGS talking about them. You hear a lot of predictions about what's happening in the mountains. So they're all correct, and Steve did a great job of characterizing the hillsides here, the mountains above your community here, and the condition they are in. I would just reiterate what Steve gave to you. I'm dirty today because I've been climbing all over those mountains. I decided I need to get up, even though I'm one of these office types now. I needed to get up today, knowing I was coming here, to really get a bird's eye view about what's happening today. So I'm fresh from the field, ready to tell you about what we know and what's happening in your community. I did take a hike up into the park area. I know I wasn't supposed to go up there, but I did go up there, and it is true that the topsoil has eroded, as we expected it would. It's come down. Unfortunately, we didn't have any time for growth, and we've lost that, and now we're to insides channels or canyons in the area, which means that we have heavy erosion. If you imagine sort of raveling of a little drainage starts, where you look at a slope and there's a little cut in it, and that keeps getting deeper and deeper and more insides, big cut, and exposes boulders, sand, gravel, and that is what we are seeing now in our debris basins throughout the community. Every single debris basin pretty much looks the same. And the other thing I have to tell you, and it's important as engineers these days to tell the public what we know, we do expect this event, these conditions to persist for at least 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years. It's very important that we be diligent, as Steve said, and that you know the conditions in this community. We cannot fall asleep. And I want you all to rest assured, Steve didn't know our program or how often we're working right now. Right now I have my crews on a 12-hour schedule, 12 to 14-hour schedule, 7 days a week. We are working 24/7 on certain basins, and you do see the trucks from those basins coming, and I apologize to all you who live nearby. I'll tell you a little bit about that and make you feel maybe a little bit better about the material that we're bringing there. They will not be working Sunday. This Sunday, I have to give them a day off. They look blurry-eyed. I met with the staff. By the way, there's a huge number of staff that works on this area, and I'm hoping they're being courteous to you. They are some of the most dedicated people I've ever worked with, and I told them today they're some of the most proud people. I'm more proud of them than anyone I've ever been in our department in terms of the way they've shown up and responded to what's happening. So I'm assuming they're being polite, because they're polite by nature. I'm hoping that they're waving at you and letting you go first. We are trying to keep the trucks and the truck drivers, who those are rental trucks, by the way, and the operators, in line as well. Okay? The guys with the white truck and the blue and yellow stripe, that's LA County Public Works, and they're within the component called the Los Angeles County Flood Control District. Just so you know what the difference is, the Flood Control District resides within the LA County Public Works. And so you see the logo on my shirt. It was invented in about 1915, and I've resurrected it to keep our spirits up this year. So about 1915, we got busy with this kind of work, and we've been around since that time. You pay about average residential fee for our service is $28 per residential property. Some of you may pay more or less than that. It's based on the amount of water that comes off your property, basically, put it very simply. It's a pretty good deal when you think about what the millions that we're spending to take care of your properties. Okay. I don't even want to look at the budget. Okay. So you're familiar with the site from the air. This is the Dunsmuir SPS, at least the most recent aerial I have of it. I know it doesn't look exactly like that today, but it does give you an aerial or sort of overview of the debris basin. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, acronyms were the word engineers. Sediment placement site, just that simple. And what these sediment sites are proposed to do is actually serve those 28 or 29 basins that exist in this area. We have two very large active sites happening, Dunsmuir and another one called May Sediment Placement Site that's actually towards Pacoima. It's in the city of LA area over by Olive View Hospital, if you know the area. This debris basin, or sediment placement site and debris basin, was constructed in the 1950s. 1952, again, when the County of Los Angeles had jurisdiction over the area. The property was bought for the explicit purpose of a sediment placement site to serve the debris basin, which is over here on the right-hand side. The debris basin here, and the sediment placement site actually covers an entire area in this area that we own and operate. When I say we own, the Los Angeles County Flood Control District owns that property. Just below the water tanks, our property boundary starts just below the water tanks up there, and it proceeds south towards Mark Ridge, and then the boundaries are demarcated by the roads there. The site is actually designed to contain 2 million yards of sediment. That was the site capacity in 1952, or the idea we had, that we would be able to put 2 million yards. To put that in context for you, that is 200,000 truckloads. 200,000 truckloads. The capacity of the basin at the time that we had the start of this rainy season was about a little under 1 million yards. So we had already put 1 million cubic yards in the basin since 1952. We do not expect the basin to reach its complete capacity this season, although it could get close. For instance, in the February 6th event, we had 647,000 cubic yards enter into all the debris basins in the area, about 28, so that's cumulative, added up. We had about 260,000 enter into Dunsmuir alone. The Dunsmuir material, 260,000 yards of the, let me get that number right, because those are good numbers. February 6th storm deposited additional 678,000 cubic yards into the 28 debris basins across the foothill area. 226,000 cubic yards are being placed in Dunsmuir SPS. So we're placing a portion of the sediment and it's 260,000 into the Dunsmuir SPS. Another 452,000 is going to this May SPS, which is in the city of LA. About 260,000 cubic yards of that material is going to come from Dunsmuir debris basin. So we're not having all of Dunsmuir debris basin deposited in this location because of capacity issues in here, and also our workload, the way we work. There was a question also about the cleaning of the basin right now, so just get to it quickly. Our current schedule is that we would have the basin cleaned out by February 27th. This is Herculean, by the way. We started on February 22nd, and we're trying to get this done in 15 days. Now, that is a tremendous effort to clean the basin. As Steve mentioned, we have to bring in heavy equipment, and we've already brought it in, which will cherry pick the large trees and other things that are up on the spillway and move that off. We got about 90% of that done today, maybe 80% of that done today. It'll be done tomorrow, most likely. The inlet has been cleaned, the tower has been cleaned, and we then will proceed to start taking the material. Now, what's nice is the material comes from there and moves over to the other site. What we'll originally do is move as much as we can from Dunsmore right into the SBS site, and then we'll take the rest off to May. You may have heard us getting a proclamation out of the governor of California as an emergency. He also is helping us with a new site called La Tuna. You may be familiar with La Tuna area, and not in your community. That will be another sediment placement site, and we're seeking to create a 9 million yard sediment placement site there. Now, so you know that we are creative and we are trying everything we can to move this material and to work in an environmentally sensitive way these days, we're also seeking to find out if we can move the material to Middle Harbor Project in Long Beach. There's a project that's going to occur in the Port of Long Beach where they need about 3 million yards, and I'm sure you're all willing to have it go there. And so I am in the middle of negotiations with the Port of Long Beach to move the material, as it would have naturally done anyway, right on down there. And I will throw one concept I've thrown at my engineers out, and we'll see what happens. It's imaginative in my mind, and that's to rail the material down to the port, drage it out to sea, and then dump it at sea. Because of the cost of mitigation these days to create sites like Dunsmore, the cost to you all who pay this tax will be tremendous. For instance, the 112-acre site that we already own called La Tuna, we will have to mitigate that or find another piece of property and leave it in its natural state at a 3-to-1 ratio at least. We're being told by State Fish and Game. We already own a 67-acre site here locally called the Tahunga site as mitigation for these kind of things. So in today's world, what happens if I want to go and move the debris that it comes off these slopes and put it into another place, because of environmental concerns and the rules that apply to fishing with Fish and Game, I've got to mitigate that activity. And the folks that pay the price for that are you all in the taxes that we charge. Now, we haven't raised the taxes in the flood control district since about 1978, 1980, and I don't expect to raise them anytime soon. But that means I'm limited on what I can do with what I have currently. Okay, a little bit of a technical because there was some questions, and I know everybody in the room can't read grading plans, right? But this is, just so you know, there is a plan for the SBS. There was questions, well, do you have a plan? That's a great question. That was my first question when I heard it. Do we have a plan? And being a person who wrote the grading codes for LA County, I was very concerned about, well, what is the plan? And we do have the plan, and your area superintendent, Mr. Stan Lamb, who's a man of high integrity, pulls out the plan and says, this is the ultimate plan for Dunsmore debris basin. What it would involve is the current access road that goes up the middle of the sediment placement site will actually not be there any longer. There will be one slope across the face. The plan calls for about a 150-foot slope all the way back towards the back of the current site. To give you an idea, if you're standing at just below the water tanks in that area, the top pad, if you will, which is depicted as this kind of dashed area, would be about 20 to 30 feet below that area. It is a significant fill. It is a significant landfill of material, and it needs to be placed properly with engineering involved. And I want to assure you, our staff of geologists and soils engineers is involved. I am personally involved, and we have a staff of registered engineers all the way down the line, same as me, that takes a look at what's happening on a daily basis. Right now, we're moving material in, and it needs to be moved. It will be reconfigured even further than it is now. The reason it's being placed as rapidly as now in a stockpile fashion is time. Time is not on our side. So what we're doing is examining locations of place, being sure that if we did have some kind of superficial failure on that face, that it wouldn't reach anywhere beyond, within the site itself. It's called reaching its angle of repose, so it doesn't want to slide off into the street. I'm very confident in the site condition as it currently stands. Today, as I said, I hiked up to the water tank area and viewed what was happening there. I had my staff geologist out as well as soils engineers giving me their reports, their dailies, to see what was happening. And I was interviewing the folks that are actually there guiding the trucks. We have a lot of heavy equipment up there. I really do recommend you don't go into that site. I know we have a lot of people who are curious. I love that because I'm a curious person too. But it is no place to be curious when we have heavy equipment running there. However, I'm very interested in transparency as well. So we want you to interact with us. And the way we've been doing that is having you come through your Public Works Department, talk to Steve or April, contact them, let us know what your concerns are. If you see our staff on the street, no problem. Don't ask them to come onto your property to do anything, please. But if you have a question, you want to talk to us, we want to be available to you. And I'm anyone who hasn't had a one-on-one, especially those of you that live nearby, please let me know. I'll give my cards out today and make sure you get a contact person that we can talk to. We have an area engineer. His name is Art Vandervis. And the other number that I'm going to give out to you in the case of anything you're concerned about LA County flood control property or operations is our actual dispatch number. You'll get an operator. 626 458 HELP, which is 4357. There'll be a very, very nice young lady on the phone. Yes?
Where do you differentiate with the actual timber and that kind of stuff? Where does that get taken? Does that go with
That's
because
great.
of the mud? Or?
No, absolutely not. We would not put any organics into a fill. That's a no-no. You can put rock in a big, large fill like this. Heavy rock can be buried to a certain depth. It's called windrows. You can put rock in there. But we do not, we separate material such as that before we put it into the fill. We may stockpile it on site. You might see it there mounded up. And then most of that's going to have to go to the dump, actually, the organics, the large trees and boulders. Now, some of the huge boulders we've taken out, and we use them as trophies. And we put those, if you ever go up to Pickens Yard on Briggs, you'll see the rock, the 4-ton rock that I named out of Malali Debris Basin. It's up at the Pickens Yard right now. We're going to put a plaque on it. Huge rock. Yeah. So in most of our big yards, the field yards, they have something like that to commemorate something like that. Here's a little cross-section. Just shows you how we do the fill. This is sort of technical. But what happens is we mound the material and we put what's called a buttress there. The buttress is designed, it is soil, dirt. It's designed and compacted in a way so that it resists anything from wanting to go down slope, if you will. So as we build each section, we're building these buttresses so that we don't have a slope failure. And we will reduce the slope to a 2-to-1 slope, which is a standard of practice in the grading world. Again, the individuals that are working with us, and namely myself, are the folks that wrote the grading ordinance for LA County and also wrote grading ordinances, international grade code ordinances for grading. We have a long history in understanding and grading, geology, soils. You should feel rest assured that we have the right staff on board to deal with those kind of issues. Back to the SBS, yes.
Mark, 2 questions. One about the Dunsmuir Channel.
Sure.
We all watched the timber with a great deal of concern. Some of it, the only thing that stopped some of the timber from getting over into the channel was the root ball or something.
Right.
What's your view of the ability of that channel to handle that kind of debris?
I'm glad you asked. What we're doing, and that's, I want to answer it sort of generically and then be specific about that specific spillway. I've been doing Debris Basin 101 everywhere, and I think I have it down to a pretty simple. I do it in front of my kids and my wife, especially my wife, and she understood what I was saying. Take a bathtub and start filling it up with water. At the bottom of the bathtub, there's a drain that you can open and close. Leave it open and start running the water in the bathtub. That drain at the bottom is the tower you see. Okay, that tower you see has all the holes in it. Now, if you run the water fast enough, you notice something? You can start filling the bathtub up even though the drain is full. The drain is open, right? And if you put anything in the bathtub, throw your washcloth in there, and it covers that drain, it starts to fill up real fast. That's our debris. It starts to settle out, purposely stopping the water, bring it to 0 velocity so that the sediment will fall out of the water. It's settled in there, and then the drain is tall because the sediment keeps rising up along it, and it still drains the basin. At some point, that drain, it has a drain underground. You can't see it in the picture. It actually it hooks up to the channel downstream. If that drain plugs, like in your tub, it keeps going up. At the top of the tub, right where you flick to close it or open it, there's actually another relief there, right? It won't spill over the tub because there's another drain higher up. It spills. If you've ever filled your sink up, the same thing happens. It doesn't spill over. That's our debris basin. If it spilled over the sink, that's our spillway. The term spillway is when it spills over. Now, the question was, if we have this spillway here, the drain plugs, the tower plugs, and the spillway right here, everything fills up and it starts to spill over the spillway. The debris basin is operating properly. Don't be afraid. It is actually letting the flows go over the spillway and run into the channel and be carried off. So we had a lot of people calling us, the spillway's going over, and we already knew it was going over. What's the problem is if the spillway then gets debris on it, if it gets trees on it, and it starts to get blocked. So the first place our crew go in the middle of the night is try to remove any debris on the inlet tower, get away from it, and they actually get in, believe it or not. I don't know if you know this. 2:30 in the morning, people are in little boats up against that tall drain, and they're using things to keep it open. Then we say, not safe, pull out, inflow, and they move to the spillway. They keep trying to keep that open. If they can't keep that, they're calling saying, spillway, it's at spillway and heavy debris. If the debris goes over and does not flow properly, you can imagine the channel itself then gets blocked. And then you have water jumping out of the channel. That's a problem. The channel also is designed for a certain flow. It is an event, 50-year or 100-year event is what I'll say because it's easier to say. It's a large, high-capacity channel. It has a lot of velocity too because it's steep. It will operate in a lot of conditions. So the likelihood of it jumping the channel is very unlikely. Again, even if the debris goes with it, it's still, and it's designed to carry debris, by the way, it will go on down through the community. However, if we get a flow of something beyond our design capacity, a 100-year event or something like that, and it starts to jump channel, what can happen with this debris blocking there is it spits over the sides of it, it runs down, and it does not make its way into the channel properly. And that's a problem. What will happen is it'll spread out, and we hope it'll return to the channel. And you see the sides are kind of armored beyond that so that it can flow back in. That's why it's wider at the top of there and it channels down. So two things when you're thinking about the open channel. We love open channels because you can actually see the water in the channel and know how deep it is and don't ever go in there. But you know whether it needs to be maintained. If it's underground, it's hard to know what's going on underground. And by the way, we have people who go underground. Yeah, they're in white suits. The guys that climb in the top of the tower, if you go up into the park and you look down, they're in the tower. They're trained underground crews. Never, any child, I see Boy Scouts here, no one should ever be climbing in a channel or a storm drain. Very, very dangerous to do that.
Mark, second question. On the deposit site, based on the amount of capacity, you close it up and maintain it?
Well, that's like, given what's happening now, my best estimate, we will make it through this season and have some capacity. But I can see, yes, I can see a scenario where we're done using Dunsmore next year. Yeah, easily. And some people are clapping, but it has served and it continues to serve the community very, very well. And the foresight of the folks that put that in place in the 1950s is incredible. And of course, like most humans, we learn from things that happen, and we always want to look at history. So we know we need more based on that history, and that's what I described to you earlier. Some people say, why not take it to a landfill instead of to these areas? The landfill can only take so much material like this. It's only allowed by law to carry this type of material. They use it as a capping material if it's dry enough. If it's not dry enough, they can't even use it that way, and they charge us a disposal fee the same as garbage, and it's humongous cost. So it's a cost to you, and I have to watch out for that too. I'm looking for the best deal I can get for you for this material. Now, some people say, why not sell it? We actually do sell some of the material at some of the sites. The City of LA site, we actually are processing some of the material there and selling it to a vendor for use. Why not buy one of these open pits in Sunland and stick it in there? Well, we are trying to buy those pits, but they still have use to them. We do own a pit in Irwindale. I don't know if you're aware of that. And we use that for our east area operations. It would be a heck of a haul to go to Irwindale from here. We are looking for every place. However, what we do look at is, those large parcels, and then we have to have community support when we go to do it. So we are constantly seeking new locations, new ideas, every possibility with respect to sediment placement, yes. The funny thing is most people are looking for open spaces now to drain water into and to perk water into the ground rather than let it run off. And so a lot of the push these days, and even by our agency, is to go searching for open sites for the purpose of actually draining, recirculating water. And, of course, we maintain a number of spreading grounds throughout the county.
If the landfill closes in a year or two, is it designed to be turned into park too, or
well,
to be filled all the way up to the water tanks?
Well, we'll probably have a site for sale. I've been telling our guys, I did some land development work early in my career, we ought to be thinking about highest and best use when we fill this up. And, of course, we want to work with the community and whatever it becomes. I'll give you a little hint. The flood control district is authorized to have its land be used as park land in conjunction with other jurisdictions, and of course there's a park adjacent. So we need to talk about that. We're not allowed to sell land without it being for the purpose of flood control purposes, by the way. It has to stay in our ownership. And we can lease land to property owners, but under the law that's created the flood control, we do not sell property unless it's considered excess property to the district. We want to be around to maintain that site, though. It is a fill. Fills need to be maintained. It's going to be landscaped. We're going to want to work with your zoning department about what landscaping to use here on a fill slope. So we'll have a lot of interaction with the city. But you know, these multi-use projects like that are a great idea.
Is the community going to get involved with what happens with that space?
I promise you that the flood control. Yeah, well, I promise you that the flood control district will do outreach. We'll be involved with the community. We'll do major stakeholder outreach on our closeout plan for that site. And then, of course, we own the liability for it, so we're going to be here to continue to maintain it.
And I don't know if this would fall under your domain or not, but has there been talk about just trying to reforest the hillsides now, either through seeding?
Wow, it's a great question.
Dropping seed and trying to get replanted as quickly as possible?
It is one of the largest debates on the federal level, down state and local level. And in fact, LA County, our department was approached by a number of vendors, if you will, that wanted to see their product used. And U.S. Forest Service has done a tremendous studies in this arena and really do not believe that reforestation can be done appropriately that way. Now, you need to get the forester up here to let them answer that question, but they came and did a full demonstration for us. We were asking whether they thought that would be appropriate, and the answer was definitely not. And the reasons have to do with the type of material. We have granitic rock in these mountains, very steep. We have the surface of the material so burnt that those soils won't receive materials. We had to fly the area to do it. And so they really felt that this was not something, they actually are not giving, even if we wanted to do it, they would not permit us to do it.
So,
follow up?
So did they have a plan then to reach out to the community to get volunteers to help?
You know what, I understand they are working on tree planting and reforestation. I know that on our DPW site for the recovery effort, it's called dpwcare.gov. If you look there, you'll see the link to the U.S. Forest Service, and they have their BEAR report, they call it, which has an action item in it for reforestation. The other entity that I heard is working on this, just to put it out there, is a partner of ours, is the Tree People. Andy Lipkus and the Tree People have been pushing and have been invited to be involved in the reforestation efforts.
And we are looking at our part of the park as well, in terms of reforestation, but not so much hydromulching. Right.
Yeah, and that's a good distinction. What I was speaking to originally was hydromulching, actually spraying and trying to hold the soil in place. Reforestation is a different animal. So, no.
Saying all that they don't want to seed because it's not going to work. Can you explain why in the 70s when they seeded that area after the fire that we had hardly any flooding at all?
Well, I know in '78 we had, several years later, we had issues.
Oh, yeah, only on one street.
And I never use the word lucky, but it could have been, it could have had to done with the climate and the time, the rain that occurred, the way it occurred. What's devastating for us, unfortunately, is the way that these storms have come in. And our big 4 storm, which you guys know about, I spent a lot of hours up dealing with it. That kind of event where we're just getting hit with high intensity, short duration storms just ripping through soil, that doesn't give us any chance at all or anything that we would have sprayed there, a chance to actually take off. And so I think, I'd have to speculate back then, and so I won't do that, but I'll just say there definitely is a difference in thinking these days, and it has to do with an advancement in science. And the forestry, I'd love to have them come and talk to you about it, because they've got a great scientist that'll come and give you the whole one-on-one on why they won't hydromulch, but reforestation and the fire burns, the burn cycle. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was wondering, if there's a committee started, is it by Glendale? Is it by the forestry or the county? Because this is all Opacena. I don't mean to offend anybody, but I grew up here and I'm 66 years old. I don't know any other valley. And you can't just leave out Cosena Valley.
Right.
We have to all come together. But there's people that will donate money. There's people that are willing to get the trees and carry them up there, and there's people that are willing to plant the trees. Is Glendale, our county, or anybody, or the forestry getting this organized? Or any private people doing it?
In time. In time. I think those are great ideas. And Mr. Chapchian and his staff are working diligently on putting volunteer lists together and looking. They have been constantly. I'm speaking for George. He doesn't need that, but they've constantly been looking and evaluating different things on what to do with the park. It's just that the devastation at the park. It's amazing, and the ability to revegetate is going to be a difficult task. You'd asked the question, the gentleman asked the question about why in the 70s it worked, and I wasn't here, I don't know, but I can give you an example of recent times where somebody said to us, well, when Griffith Park burned, they hydro-mulched and everything came back. A whole lot of different things there. It burned in May, didn't burn in September, so they weren't entering the flood season, they were actually entering the end of the planting season and getting through the summer season, so they had the ability for it to hold. They had a little bit different soil conditions, and they didn't get backed up against the rainy season. They had a very, very light winter that year.
The fire in the 70s was in November, and they seeded immediately after, and they started getting growth. By this time, we had Green Mountains again. At least it was holding it back. Now there's nothing being done.
I will say there is a huge difference between the two fires. I mean, the station fire's size alone and the length of time it burned, the heat that was generated. I know in looking at the soil types and hiking it even today, looking at the extent of the burn, it is a tremendous burn, and it is the most significant burn in LA County history in terms of size. So you have the size of watershed really pushing water down. The other thing is, I would just reiterate your point is, it really is about the citizens getting together and pushing, and the government is your government. You know, if LA County Flood Control District wants to be a part of it, we've organized ourselves around watershed approach these days. And what watershed approach means is we get to talk to all the communities as one entity. And so, you know, those messages are good, and I think you got to keep pushing for that. And I know the city's will be working with you. But right now, with what's going on up there, we really want, and the forest is right, keep people out of the forest for the time being. Very dangerous place to be. It is. Have you seen some of the? Yeah, it is starting to show up. This gentleman's been waiting back here. Sure.
Can you give me some assurances that the drivers are on structured shifts, that they're not working too much overtime, and the maintenance on the trucks, because these are subcontracted trucks?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Can you give me some assurances on oversight for that regard?
Sure. Our department only, by government requirements, will only contract with licensed drivers in the contract. And in fact, if you want to see the contract, it's probably the best assurance I could give you is the contract provisions and specifications for these drivers. We monitor them ourselves we have a contract administrator, that's somebody in an office, but we also have the superintendent and his staff who are watching the drivers as they come and go. We do kick people off the job routinely, just so you know. Someone's 5 minutes late and they're out of the cycle and gone. Where do they come from? The brokers. They're actually brokers that have these trucks on hand and can provide them. They have to keep a record of who's driven when, a log of how far they've driven, how long they've driven, and they're supposed to be off the shift after so many hours. So we rely upon the licensing of the broker, but we also use our own eyes and ears about what's happening. If we ever have a complaint about a driver, and that's something else you need to be aware of. If you have a complaint about something that's happened in the streets, and a driver, that I consider our employee while they're under contract. So if something happens, and you have a problem with that driver, I need to know about it. Take the license plate down, see the first guy in a vest, and let us know what the problem is. They don't need to be on our job. They have to, well, you mean in terms of sound? I want to tell you that the amount of material they're carrying, and we try to keep it low, 7 yards in a 10-yard truck is about the most we'll let them carry. It's tremendous weight. Their brake system is important, obviously. That's, yeah, I'm sure. So is it the noise issue, or is it the brakes? I don't have. I know they're inspected and they're okay. But, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Those are the things I really do encourage you to call in. We'll go to Twitter eventually, right, Bob, back there, and we'll be able to have you guys tweet to us, this guy, we're working on it. You can actually tell me this license did this. Dispatch. Call dispatch. Let them know you have a problem. They'll put you in touch with the superintendent. he will take care of it.
You know, I think maybe you ought to let people know that there are
That's great.
streets they're supposed to be using.
Yes.
They're not always using
What
those
are the
streets.
streets they're supposed to be on?
And they don't always stop at stop signs. And I'm not kidding. I would say at least 70%
Okay.
are on cell phones.
They're all over.
And that really bothers me.
They're all on
At least
Okay.
70%.
Boy, these guys are getting hit tonight. That's good. That's good. No, it's good. I get that. I understand it, and I'll get you.
If I could just add one thing.
Yes, sir.
We're really in a noise zone.
Yeah.
If you don't have to go 24/7, if you can just shut it down at 6 p.m. like tonight.
Let me put you in my shoes just for a second on that front, and I want you to just imagine, I'm at home or actually at work, and we're deciding how clean will we make them, and what I'm actually deciding is who am I going to protect. So it's very hard for me to tell our drivers you can't go 24/7. I don't want you to go 24/7 when I'm 1,000 yards from Malali being cleaned, or I'm Ward. The other night, Ward was very close. We were very concerned about Ward and its inlet. So it's with Pennsylvania, and it's with those decisions. And then I also thinking of you. Are we going to bother the owners? Now, we had someone frivolously say go 24/7 who didn't know our operation, and I jumped up and down because I'm thinking about you all. It would take us at least 2 months, or about a month and a half, 2 months, with a lot of massive effort to clean every single basin after one of these events. That is a huge effort. That would be a 24/7 almost doing it. We aren't looking to do that. What we're looking to do is at least get enough capacity before each event that makes sense. Now, in this event that's potentially coming Friday, Saturday, and again Sunday through Tuesday, no one's asked about weather. I can't believe it. I'm thinking, why? What I'll do, what's my priority? Clean the inlet, make sure that the spillway works, make sure the tower is working, because at least I want it to flow through. Then I go to clean. So the cleaning starts in the second phase of it. First priority is those pines. So I have to apologize to you, but there's another tremendous pressure on us about, am I going to clean it, and can I go to bed at night thinking we got it as much as we could. We lost 2 homes, no lives so far. Thank you. There was someone, yes.
What is the route that the trucks are supposed to be taking?
Okay, if I tried.
School along Orange, and you've got the 2 of them going, on a very narrow street.
There is a haul route. It's approved with the city to know which routes we're using. If we have a number of complaints, we will consider a reroute of that at times. You can imagine there's a certain route that makes the most sense, and then beyond for us, efficiency-wise, right? So what I'd like those kind of concerns, I do want to hear them, and the best way I can imagine to hear them is let's give you publish the route, and we'll do that on the website. Why don't we do that? dpwcare.gov. We have 2 things. Somebody asked about how full the basin's too, and what's our schedule. Steve was great. That's right. I wouldn't have you go examine the basin and tell me how full you think it is, because the way it operates, you won't be able to tell. But what am I doing about it? I have a spotter on that job all night, and they stand there and they radio in all night, on the hour or as needed. How full is it? How full is it? When it reaches a critical path, I get a phone call at home. We're having an issue. It's gone spillway. So just please rest assured we believe in eyes and ears. So much so that when Malali actually spilled, we had 2 gentlemen that were actually at the debris basin when it happened. Their truck was stuck right where it was, debris going by. They stayed through the entire event, called in every 15 minutes what they were seeing, and actually advised residents that they needed to either stay or get out of their homes. That's the kind of dedication we have for you there. Those people are doing that all through the night. And when it rains, we are on a 24/7, no trucks. But what we're doing when it rains is we're patrolling the streets, every single basin, on a 2-hour schedule with spotters at the critical basins, with radio, cell phone, and any other. Even one of them has a satellite phone because it don't work too well in some of these canyons. So we're on that, and then I'll put the haul routes up on the website tomorrow. So if you can give me at least till noon, we'll get them published up there. Then I want you to also call in and talk to Art Vandervis, give his name out, Art Vandervis or Stan Lamb at our Pickens Yard on Briggs, and talk to them about the haul route. You know, if you're having, I love the truck stories. I love them because it's great feedback. It's like, you have the eyes. I got one guy or two guys watching that route. You have the eyes. So if you can get that feedback to us, either through the city or directly to us, that'd be great.
Yeah, let me just reiterate a couple of points. We have great communication. I got a guy that's in constant contact with Stan. And another thing is, on the haul routes, we've attempted to, at least on the north-south routes, to alter, because we can use New York, we can use Frederick, we can use Dunsmore, we can use Boston. We've attempted to alter those so not to put all of the traffic all of the time on one particular street. I don't know if that's good, bad, or others. Yeah. So if you're trying to plan a day, that might not be the best, but we thought it might be beneficial to not at least keep it constantly going down the same, up and down the same street. Mark Ridge, we don't have that ability to do that because that is the access point. The other thing I want to make a point of is the fine men and women of the Glendale Police Department are spending a great deal of time up there ensuring that the truck drivers are abiding by the law. In fact, all truck drivers, they pulled my guys over too. So they are pulling a lot of people over. I don't know that they see every single thing, but they certainly are hearing what you're saying tonight, and I know for a fact that they've been very, very active and will continue to be active. As long as Mark gets me the haul routes, which the folks in county have done that on the mark all the time, I get that right to the police department so they're aware of the days, the haul routes, and they've become pretty familiar with who should be there and who shouldn't be there. Let me also just make a point. I've been through this before with Brand and cleaning Brand debris basin. We make a call, we give a truck driver description, we give a license plate, we don't see that guy again. He's not just telling you that. That guy just won't be working here anymore, and they've been very, very good about that. If you can't follow the rules and hauling through densely populated neighborhoods, this is not the place for you, and the county's been very responsive in that regard.
Yeah, I want to reiterate something. It would be a shame for an accident to happen when all the good work we've been trying to do to have that happen. So you can see why I am very interested. This is one of my big concerns. No, it's a great point. And one thing about our your flood control system, it is the drains, it is the channels, 500 miles of channel. It is the debris basins, 150 of them, 14 major dams, but it's also the street system. I don't know if you know this, but the way that the system was designed is that the street would also carry some flows. So we do, as you see, we've been channelizing things as they go over in through streets. So the street is a part of the system. And sometimes it is better to shelter in place. And I think that's a very good, I would endorse the training because many people sort of want to run out. Well, I want to tell you right now, if there's debris going down the street, you don't want to be a part of that debris. So once that does happen, you are going to, most likely be sheltering in place. And that's an important, I think a very good point.
I live on Markridge, and before the condition of the road was pretty good. Now I notice that from this heavy traffic, there is a lot of cracks, so we'll be there in plan, I wonder.
Yeah, when this is all said and done, we'll get together and figure out.
Steve will repave your streets. Hear about that mitigation thing?
Many of you may have. We had actually started a resurfacing program in your neighborhood. We halted that because it was pretty much a futile effort. So we'll be back, and we'll be making repairs. I'll tell you what. I'm going to be here. Mark's going to be here. I want to thank all of you again for coming out.